Experiencing its breathtaking natural charm, we take steps back to the island's past, relive history, and appreciate heritage through important landmarks and traditions that remain alive and well. Although there's little information about Camiguin's pre-Hispanic presence, historical records show that the first Spanish village was established in the municipality of Quinceliban in 1596. Today, vestiges of the past are celebrated as national cultural treasures and important cultural properties of the Philippines. For having exceptional cultural, artistic, and historical significance in the Philippines, 14 ancestral houses in Camiguin have been tagged as important cultural properties by the National Museum. In this episode, we are fortunate to visit 2 of the 14 properties located in the capital town of Mambahaw. First stop is the ancestral home of Timoteo Borromeo Chan. The 2-story, 5-room structure began construction in 1906, then completed and furnished in 1912. Current homemaker Nerio Toledo Chan graciously received us to their 113-year-old home.
Good morning, my buntag. We are here in the dining area of the Chan Heritage House here in the island of Camiguin. I'd like to welcome and thank, of course, Mr. Nerio Chan for having us here.
Good morning to Sir Art, and the pleasure is ours.
Nerio's great-grandfather was Chinese and was later baptized as Timoteo. His grandfather, Catalino Sr., was a popular actor in the Visayan movies. Catalino Sr. loved to entertain and hosted memorable parties in the house. Everything changed after the eruption of Mount Hibok-Hibok in 1951. The house was left to a caretaker for 16 years as a majority of family members moved out of the island, including Nerio's grandfather. Nerio's branch of the family stayed in the island but moved to another municipality and only returned to this house in 1967, where everything they left remained intact.
And that makes the difference sa ubang mga old houses sa Camiguin.
Yes.
The structure is there,
Yeah.
pero
It's not
empty na
it's
bitaw
not
siya,
lived in.
sir.
I was about to say, you've continued to live in the house.
Oh yes, livable man siya. Unya naara ang mga butang.
Butang.
Yes, unlike sa uban nga siguro ni migrate na sila to other places. Pagbalik sa boy, ako na ning isa kalingkuranan. Bahin ako ning bahin na. Sige kuha na. Sa ilan ni Papa dili intact siya. Until now, masa nang akong brother nagbalay. Nakuwar gid sa iyang kaugalingong mga butang-butang.
No respeto gid sila sa inyong agreement na kung unsay naa diri, naalang gid diri.
No.
So, but pasabot sir, ang kadaganan sa butang sa inyong nindot nga balay, tinuod yun nakaraan.
Oh, they were really functional.
Functional and
For
really
family use.
So even they were here even as early as 1912, as I understand.
Mao na sir nga we find it hard kung mag-acquire manggaling tagbutang, siguro mo blend sa karaan nga atong balay, aside nga watay kwarta,
Humble ka.
dili punta kapalit kay alala mo mutiner ka og kanang mga sophisticated na nga like sofas or sa diha nga ang nakadindot lang kay ni survive pud atong gamit.
Yeah, di ko kinakakoy sa kanila, di ba? Anong,
During sa visit ni Queen Sofia,
Oh.
I don't know when was that.
I think, year 2000, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh. Kuan. Yes. Ilan yung gihulaman? Oo. Sa iyang Gida sa mansion, kay iyang likuran.
Ano yung ilugaran?
Yes, okay ni kini.
Kining set.
Two of these four.
I see.
Two of these four chairs. And then ang usa gidala sa stage. Pero it passed through a tedious process. Kaya a week before, niabot siya. Gianhin ni siya test how strong
Sa kalig-on.
Sa kalig-on.
Langan, ray naman mo lingkod. Punta nga na natugpuan diri, oh. Kanang marker.
Na dili lagi pod may kibawgi mo caption. So, kuha na lang kay kung atong butangan og caption, mura na sa museum na.
Museum na.
Oh. So, natural, little bit natural.
Murag oral history na lang.
Oh, murag ingon na lang. So, mao to nga. Ay, mo din ni. Tama ra kog ingon mo ni lingkuran ni Queen Sofia. Oh, mura na siya.
There's so much history in this house, and then I'm sure so many family memories, di ba?
Oh, diha sa
Parang,
sir.
as you mentioned, they're all together in the paso. Sus kalingaw siguro diri no kanang saba and harmonious living diri.
Kuyog pa akong lolo og lola. Oh, niya, yung mga anak na. Ang karon na kami na, marag mingaw kung dili may mabisitaan sa akong pagumangko nga duol ra wapo diha.
Oh.
Kay wala ma most of the time out of the island man
So
sila.
how many are you in the household, sir?
Kami tulo lang ang akong mama,
So yung mama, ikaw, and
ako og naa mi kauban isa.
Today, the house only has 3 residents. Nerio lives with his 93-year-old mother, Loretta, or Nang Inday to many, and a household help. A century since its construction, the Chan house stands strong and a treasure trove of antique furniture, fixtures, and memorabilia that have so far survived 4 generations of the Timoteo Chan family. And our next stop is the seaside ancestral house of Don Carlos Corrales.
And we're joined by the host, no? Mr. Fernando Corrales Jr., who is here to share about the history of this house, its relevance and importance in the history of the whole island of Camiguin. How old is the house and how it came about that this beautiful structure was put up in this part of the island of Camiguin?
This house is over 100 years old. I mean, to be exact, it will be 103 this year.
103.
Yes.
Amazing.
And how this came about is very interesting. And really, on reflection, I mean, I pursued my dreams elsewhere. I left the island when I was young, and then catered and pursued all my dreams outside of the Philippines. But I got so inspired because I just came back in 2015, and on reflection, how interesting it would be to reflect and imagine then at that time how Camiguin was.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather was a young man of 24 when he came to the Philippines after his marriage to a bride of 19 in Binondo, Manila. And they decided to come here in Camiguin Island and started a family. Now, the question would be, why Camiguin Island?
Exactly, for a young couple who's based in Luzon,
Yes.
thinking about Mindanao, right?
Right. But that's what I said, I'm in awe in terms of their sense of adventure,
Sense of adventure. That's the
their
right
sense of imagination, the pioneering spirit.
It gives us some romantic feels there.
Correct, because then you would think back, because I think you can agree with me that we're privileged because our life now is easier than what it used to be.
So, who is this handsome gentleman in this portrait, sir?
He is my grandfather, great grandfather. He was the one who originated the Corrales clan
So he's
here in the
named
Philippines. He is Don Jose Corrales.
Don Jose Corrales.
He came to the Philippines round about 1840s, 1850s, appointed by the monarch of Spain at the time, Queen Isabella II, to become a judge of the court of first instance around that time. And at the same time, he became a gobernadorcillo in Cagayan de Oro, Misamis Oriental. That's why the affinity to Camiguin.
That's why he discovered Camiguin.
An island with all the
Maybe this island became their playground.
And if you notice the medallia, that's actually awarded to him because of his achievements in the Philippines and how he approached basically his achievements.
So he's from Spain.
He's from Spain. He was a widower.
So from your great grandfather and then your grandfather also stayed here. Who else stayed here after several generations? Because as you mentioned, all of you did your own adventure out of the island, out of the Philippines, and then who actually stayed here from the family? And
it's my father. I mean, my grandfather Don Carlos has basically 12 children.
Okay.
3 passed away in their infancy, so there were 9 surviving. My father is the youngest of the family. There were 3 spinster sisters, Tita Charing, Tita Suling, and Tita Pasing. And then Tita Charing was the one who lived here for a long time.
For a long time.
I think she was 98, something like that.
She passed.
When she passed. But she was the one who stayed in the house. And Tita
So
Suling was in
so much love in the house.
Yes. And I think she kept it because she enjoyed probably her childhood here. Because can you imagine running free?
Yes. I mean, I said that, I think that the 5th and 6th generation of your family would want to come back because I think the direction now is also a strong revival on loving the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And looking at areas that are not really isolated, but areas where we can have more peace and more quiet. So,
And I always believe in the fact that it's good to look at the past because I went out, now that I came back, looking at the past, it drives me to think that with the past it would propel you to a better future.
yeah, certainly.
Because then you learn a lot
You learn a lot and
of what family values and traditions are, which
Exactly
sometimes
what you're
doesn't
doing.
exist now.
exactly what you're doing. So, maybe my last question in this part of the chat is, how do you see the next generations of your family take care of this estate? I call this an estate.
I hope that my nieces and nephews in Cebu, the Kisumbin clan, because they are the ones really that preserve this and maintaining it, would instill in the next, they are the 4th, they're the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, it would continue because they honor the wish of the father and the grandfather, my first cousin Carlin, that this house cannot be touched, it has to be preserved. And I hope it would continue for all the generations to come and enjoy and be proud of the legacy of the Corrales Quezonbin family.
Wonderful. A wonderful prayer, and I pray with you. I'm sure your nieces and nephews would be listening to you intently. So,
Well, I hope that they would come. And even with COVID, you're not living side by side with anybody. It's just totally
in fact,
in tune what they say with nature.
exactly. Post-pandemic, it's all about being out there, being with nature.
I'm so passionate about this house.
And we see it, and we feel it.
And I can I'm forever grateful that my nieces and nephews, 5th and 6th generations, are really championing the cause to preserve this legacy. I stand tall and proud that we have this house here in Camiguin. And it will never go away. It's for the future generation to share.
Very well said. Thank you.
This is
You know what?
Maiden news.
I also have a copy of this, but I bought it from an auction.
This is the first eruption.
First eruption, yeah, but this is the original copy.
This is the original one, no? On Camiguin Island. 1857, if I'm not mistaken.
1870.
1875.
This was in 1871. So
So it was-
the
it was-
news came out 4 years after.
It was world news
It was
because
world news.
Yeah,
So
I
this
think I
is
have
a pili tree.
when I was growing up, I mean, I used to enjoy the fruits of this tree because they make marsapan de pili with my titas here, you know. And this was planted by my grandfather in 1888.
1888. So how old is the tree now?
This year it will be 103.
103.
103. That's why if this tree could talk, it will tell us a lot of things that happen in this.
The tree can actually share the history of your family.
That's very correct.
But wonderful. What you've done here, you keep. Of course, it's 103 years old. I'm sure you're directed in keeping it for maybe
Yeah, I mean,
another 100.
Our
Right?
family is standing proud like the pili tree.
Wonderful.
And like sentinels to keep and preserve what we have.
Another good symbol. Thank you, sir.
In 1907, the Gabaldon Law was passed by the Philippine Assembly, funding 1 million pesos in building these structures, school buildings all over the country from 1907 to 1915. The Gabaldon building has since been known as an American colonial structure designed by architect William Parsons, and just very recently, a new law was passed in protecting all of these structures all over the country. We are now in Bailao Elementary School, and this is one of 7 Gabaldon structures in the province of Camiguin, making it an important heritage and cultural site in the Philippines. This monument and water fountain, built in 1914, was part of the first wharf of the province of Camiguin. This area, now called Plaza Union, was the center of activities. It was bustling with activities related to the booming coconut and abaca industries that dominated the local economy.
While the Spanish developed roads and bridges to aid economic activity, vestiges of American public works made of reinforced concrete introduced a modern way of construction all over the island early in the 1900s. Remnants like this concrete creek railing show longevity and strength. The dying craft of blacksmithing sees a spark of life here in Camiguin, with about a dozen men organized in makeshift stalls humbly set up along the highway. Junior Guy Ramon, originally from Surigao and married to a local, has been a blacksmith here for over 30 years. His small team starts a day at 5 in the morning and skillfully hammer, heat, blow and shape scrap iron or molye for half a day. Like a dance performance, Junior and fellow blacksmiths craft and produce a dozen Philippine bolos like the barong, guna, and sanggot by noontime to meet prepaid orders or sell them on display by the roadside.
This is the Philippine bolo called the barong. It is an all-purpose tool popular all over the Philippines. And we thank the hard-working man behind me for keeping the art of blacksmithing alive and well.
Strong, focused, and sure are these men of steel that create functional tools and pieces of handcrafted art. Camiguin's mountains of low and medium altitudes are home to Nito vines of the fern family. The vines grow a secondary forest clinging to trees and rocks, and its abundance brought about Pinicas weaving, using Nito splits to create high-quality crafts. And like the discipline of blacksmithing, the art of Pinicas is left in the hands of a precious few.
The Santa Rosario Church here in the municipality of Sagay is an important cultural property as declared by the National Museum. It was built in 1882 with locals contributing corals for its adobe walls. It has been said that over 1,000 eggs were used to build this structure. Today, only the facade and belfry remain from its original structure.
The San Nicolas de Tolentino parish in Mambahaw was founded in 1916, and the current church structure was built to completion from 1936 through 1938. Despite the huge size of the church, its simplicity complements the small town center of Mambahaw. Stained glass windows, wood doors, and not so ornate altar make for a unique mid-century design. Several tombs in the church seem to be the only obvious reminder that villages populated the island based on available records as early as the 16th century. The same reminder greeted us when we visited the private cemetery of the Reyes clan, prominent old-timers of the island.
We are in the municipality of Quinciliban, the first Spanish settlement in the 16th century in the island of Camiguin. And around me are remnants of a fort also known as the Moro Watchtower. And the lookout behind me were used by locals to watch out for pirates who were never welcome to the island. Together with the Giob Church ruins and the sunken cemetery, the Moro Watchtower was declared a national cultural treasure. This makes the island of Camiguin as an important destination for history, culture, and tradition. The old church ruins, also known as the Giob Church ruins, would probably be the only reminder of the fury shown by Mount Vulcan when it erupted on May 13, 1871. And on that fateful day, hundreds were killed, and the whole capital town, then called Cotabato, vanished. Today, the Giob Church ruins is one among popular destinations in the island of Camiguin, reminding travelers and locals that the island is a cradle of history, heritage, and tradition. The huge cross behind me serves as a landmark for the sunken cemetery, part of the Giob Church destructed by the furious eruption of Mount Vulcan on that fateful day of May 13, 1871. Today, Both Giob Church ruins and the sunken cemetery are national cultural treasures of the Philippines.
We traced back the past through tangible and intangible reminders in the present. Not only is the island a host to natural wonders, but also priceless cultural treasures and traditions. Next, let's move forward and savor island flavors in a full 360 food trip off Camiguin.
Daghang salamat, and this is Mindanao Roadtrip.